Okay, angle relationship notes. So I'm going to go over some vocabulary here and talk about it and talk about the relationship. So I'm going to bring this over to the side, and this will be something you'll just want to write down. So the first term we have up here is complementary. Okay, and complementary means it has to add to equal 90 degrees. Okay, add to equal 90 degrees. So how do you know if something's 90 degrees? Well, it either says 90 or, like we learned in the previous lesson, you're going to look for that box. Okay, it means it's a right angle. So we know a right angle is 90 degrees. One word that's not up here that we also want to address is supplementary. So supplementary means add to equal 180. Okay, so what did we learn in the previous lesson? That's 180. Well, that's a straight angle, a straight line. So if I have, say, two angles here, those two angles together, so if I take this angle and that angle together, then those two angles have to equal 180 degrees. All right, the next one, along with that, this is referred to also as a linear pair. Okay, so pair meaning two. So these two angles right here again are two angles that form this straight line, which means they have to equal 180 degrees. Vertical angles, always think about the V. The relationship for vertical angles are congruent or equal. And vertical angles are just angles that are back to back. So it's like forming back-to-back V's. So if I took two lines and made an X, these are what I mean vertical. Those are back-to-back angles. The last one on here is adjacent. Okay, the word adjacent just means next to. So it's angles next to each other. So in this case, linear pair are adjacent. They're two angles that are right next to each other and make a line. But you can have other adjacent angles, and we'll see those as we look at these examples. All right, so this first part is just naming the relationship. Okay, so in this first one, we have A and B. They're right beside each other, so that means they are adjacent. But they're also beside each other and make this straight line. Okay, so what that means is if we look, there's some parts in this that are not necessary for us to have. So like this line segment right here, that really doesn't tell us anything else in this problem. Okay, it's just an added feature in the question itself. So these are adjacent, but they're also a linear pair because again they form that line, so they have to equal 180 degrees if you add them together. What I don't know is anything about A and B. Now by appearance I would say A is what kind? An acute angle because that's less than 90 and B is bigger than 90. Okay, what about problem number 2? In this case A and B are just adjacent. That's it. They're just next to each other. They do not form a line here, so they're not a linear pair. And again, there's some added stuff in here, like this part right here is not necessary in the picture. And you're going to learn that in geometry, that sometimes there's things in here that aren't needed. Number 3, A and B, they're again adjacent. They're right next to each other, but this time they are also complementary because they equal 90 degrees. And how do we know that? Because of the box. We know that box equals 90. Okay. What about number 4? Okay, lots of stuff in here we don't really need. So all this stuff here, these lines that are drawn that have nothing to do with A and B, I can just eliminate those, and that helps me visually see a little bit better what the relationship is. So here A and B are again adjacent. They're right beside each other. Okay, let's go on. Number 5. Let's let's get rid of this, because that doesn't really give us anything for A and B. Get rid of this. Now if we look at it, A and B are back to back. So these are vertical angles, and we just got through saying what's the relationship? Vertical angles are congruent or equal. So that means A and B are equal. Now, the way we show that in a picture is an arc. So if they each have one arc, then that means they're congruent to one another. All right, the last one. So again, I'm going to get rid of some lines that don't help me. They don't have anything to do with A and B. So I can get rid of all this stuff right here. Now if I look at A and B, again, they're beside each other, so they're adjacent. But they're also complementary because they make that right angle. So we know they have to equal 90 degrees. All right, so the next two problems have us actually finding the measure based on the picture itself. So again, this is why we want to know the relationship. So again, I get rid of stuff I don't need. So what's the relationship? Those two are vertical. We just got through saying vertical angles are equal, so that means angle B is also 32 degrees. All right, what about 8? Okay, these are adjacent, but they also are complementary because they make that right angle. So how do I get that? Well, that means B plus 45 has to equal 90 degrees. So I subtract 45. If I subtract 45, then I get B is also 45 degrees. So some quick lesson there with some relationships. Let's look at some more problems. Okay, these pictures are a little more complex, but again, they give us stuff that's not necessary. So that's what we always want to do. Try to get rid of things that you don't need. So in this case, these lines don't give me anything. Look here. What are these? These are back to back, so they're vertical. So that means 2x plus 1 has to equal 81. Well, the difference is here I got to solve. So I subtract 1. So hopefully you're understanding now why we did that first lesson to review algebra. Divide by 2, so we get x is 40. Now the thing to do is take it, go back, plug it in, make sure it works. And if I do, I get 2 times 40 is 80 plus 1 is 81. Okay, next one. So again, this line doesn't give us anything in the picture. So I look at these. All right, those are beside each other, so they're adjacent. But what else are they? Well, they make this line. So that means they're a linear pair. So we go back. What did linear pair mean? That means they have to equal 180 degrees. So that means 146 plus x minus 39 equals 180. If I combine those, that's 107. Then I subtract 107 from both sides. If I do that, then I get x is, what, 73? And again, you can go back and plug it in and make sure it works. So if I take 73, plug it in, 73 minus 39 is 34. And if I do 34 and 146, that equals 180. So that works. All right, last one. Again, I'm going to get rid of these lines that don't add anything to the picture. So I don't need these. I look at this. What's the box mean? It means it equals 90. So I have 5x plus 4 plus 36 has to equal 90. Combine those. That's 5x plus 40. Subtract 40 from both sides. 5x is 50. Divide by 5. So hopefully by now you're getting used to solving equations. Now we got x is 10. So those are some angle relationships.